Today I want to share with you my experience in using Xano for almost 3 years. I've been a Xano customer for 3 years, building applications for myself and for clients. And a lot of people like Supabase, a lot of people like BuildShip, and I want to show you why after 3 years I'm still using Xano, even though that I can write code myself, I can write JavaScript myself, I could use edge functions, I could use cloud functions, but I'm still choosing to use Xano, and I want to show you in this video exactly why I'm choosing to do that. So let's take a look at that. So now we are here in my Xano dashboard for probably the most complicated project ever built in Xano, Despia, which essentially builds a raw iOS and Android application directly on the Xano server. We run all of that build process on Xano, and it's quite a stretch to do that, and it works perfectly. And we're still only on the $249 a month plan for doing very compute intensive things, putting thousands of files together into a zip file that can then be opened in Xcode. So let me walk you through some things without sharing too much business secrets that justify us still using Xano. Now, first of all, the thing is speed. In Xano, you're going to get speed that you don't have anywhere else. Of course, you can have AI build your cloud function, but here's the thing. When you build on the backend, you are always at a constant battle of balancing security with speed. Now, Xano out of the box gives you great security, gives you great pre-built blocks that allow you to make your applications very secure. If you build your whole function, your cloud function, with AI, Claude, or some built-in AI, you're always compromising security if you don't double-check all the code that it generates. And let's be honest, most of the times, we don't always double check all the code that is being outputted by AI. We'll just tend to go over a little bit too quickly, and we may miss some critical things. So the idea that in Xano I can build things quickly, almost as quick as using AI, but I still have those building blocks that are always the same. It's a standardized system. And I can do things that are secure and compliant and HIPAA compliant and everything that I need to. I have my own dedicated resources. I have my own virtual machine. That is a big pro. You don't have a serverless structure. You actually get your own machine. And lots of people say it's not true. Xano doesn't give you your own virtual machine, but that is not true. Xano gives you your own virtual machine, and it uses a containerized system to put your Lambda functions in its own container, your database in its own container, your APIs in its own container. So all of those things that are memory intensive, that take some space, run in their own separate environment within your virtual machine. Now that's why Xano is a little bit more hefty to get started with in terms of pricing, because they do have to rent that virtual machine for you. So you're not being charged by how much you use, you're being charged by how big your machine is, how much iron you're getting, right? So that brings me to another big pro is if you get an attack on your server, or if you get lots of requests overnight, you're not going to be charged for it, but also there is the risk of your machine just slowly turning off or going slow if you get millions of requests. But also you're not being charged by requests, so you don't have to worry about $70,000, $80,000 Firebase invoices as you were to get with Firebase or Supabase potentially if you have certain billing safety mechanisms not enabled, or for example AWS does not allow you to enable those things because that's how they make their money, right? So with Xano, if you are building an application, you don't have to worry about any surprise billing. That is very important, and that differentiates it with most of its competitors. You get your actual machine, you're paying for the server, you're paying for the space, and that's everything that you're paying for with Xano. Now, you do have a higher upfront cost because you got to buy the machine, right? But once you got the machine, it's all you can eat. That's the difference. Now, the biggest thing, and I want to emphasize on that, is how nice it is to have everything in one platform. I can have my databases in one platform. I can have my APIs all in one platform, and I can have my background tasks all in one platform, my cron jobs. And I got add-ons, which are like GraphQL, and I got my functions, so I can build modular systems. You see, I'm using lots of functions for Despia. I got a modular system right inside of here, and it lets you do amazing things, truly amazing things. It's just wonderful how it works, that you can turn things into reusable functions. For example, what am I doing here? We can take a look at let's take a look at bunny cdn upload. I have a little function here that is reusable, that allows me to upload something on a bunny cdn zone. So I can build this as a component, right, as a function, and then I can reuse this function in API. So everything I built in Xano can be reused in the future. Now, the biggest thing with Xano is the function stack. That's what you're paying for. The ability to script complex background tasks visually is just amazing. I can go in here, I can spin up a function or an API, I can define my inputs, and I can build visually inside of here. So I can do with Xano's API builder, the beautiful thing about it is it's logically complete, meaning even though it is a no-code tool, a visual interface, I can do everything with it that I could do in code. But the thing is, I don't have to express myself through syntax. I express myself by, I don't know, taking an array data manipulation and doing a find every element and adding it in here and configuring those things visually, which makes it way faster than doing it manually, and also gives me the ability to then have team members join the product, train them on it, and give clients or people in my team that are maybe not that technical the ability to understand how the system is working, and also have domain experts in finance, domain experts in iOS development take a look at that backend and give ideas and try things around to see how we can streamline processes. The ability is that you can start something in Xano and you can collaborate on what you're building with people who are really good at the thing that you're trying to build for them, but you may not be an expert at finance or math or whatever, is a big benefit. The way it streamlines the build process and bridges the gap between developers and experts that are not developers is just a great way of building, and I do really like that. Let's take a look at APIs, because I've been abusing Xano, and I showed Daniel from Xano what I've been doing, and he was surprised that it's still working. I mean, don't take it wrong that he was surprised that it's still working. Xano is great, I can tell you. I've been abusing that whole thing, and it does work. It does work great. I'm probably doing stuff that they would have never anticipated for it to be done in it, but that just shows how great their system is, that you can do all of those things. Let me show you what I'm doing here, and this is kind of like when they start to look a little bit scared when I show it to them. We're literally building a raw iOS app in here. So the way it is in this Despia endpoint here for Despia, which is a tool to build mobile applications without writing code yourself. You can build mobile applications compared to Flutterflow, if you will. It's fully built on Xano, the backend. What we're doing here is we're getting your app record, we're getting your license, making sure you're paid, right? That's important. Then here's where the security comes in. We're blocking the request if you don't have a license. And we're getting that from the app ID. So we're checking if the app has a license, and then we're doing that. Now that I'm looking at it, we probably want to add authentication to this endpoint to make it truly secure. I should probably do that. And if I were to do it, I'm not going to save it because it's going to then break the whole thing for now. It's as easy as adding authentication, and then we're getting the user record, querying an advanced query, making sure the user has actually access to the application, and then processing that. But we can do those things very simple, and we can add to it very simple in Xano. And this goes back to the point of having the ownability, having the maintainability. You see, I just found a security issue in my API. I was able to start correcting it within a matter of seconds. I just add a few more Legos into this API. I will be able to now improve the security within a matter of minutes, and I don't have to rewrite the code and work with the syntax and look at Stack Overflow, how was that formatted again. I don't have to write it. The ability to just drag those elements in there and build fully functional stuff is amazing. But let's just actually revert this, and then I'll do it later after this video. What we also want to take a look at is how it actually builds the raw application, which is really cool. So what it really does in here, and that's quite complex, it's probably one of the most complex things built, or most of the most enormous things built in Xano. We're getting some repository that we host on Xano as a private file, so everything is secure, right? Then we're getting that file, we're creating a file resource for it, we're building an Apple workspace file by doing actually string replacements, which is one way of doing things. And we are then, creating all those files, putting them all together, building the icons, putting everything into it, and it ultimately puts it into a framework of over 2,150 files, and it runs pretty smooth, pretty nicely. And then I can show you, we have some things doing the entitlement files here, and we got it all put into functions. Now, for some complex things, which we're doing in Xano, is the code signing. For that, we need to get certain certificates going on. So let's see if I can find that again. What I'm doing here, and this is the nice thing about using Xano, you can go really, really crazy in what you're doing. I have this magic iOS endpoint, which is building an iOS application, right? And let's see, where did I put it? If I put it in here, what essentially it's doing is it's building the application. It's creating a new app record here with the, it's getting the app record, it's building all the things together, getting the icons, putting it all together, sending it to CodeMagic, and then triggers a real-time event. This is actually then, because Xano doesn't have a CI/CD pipeline, right? We're actually doing everything that puts the files together in Xano and then sending it to CodeMagic to get it on there. So even if Xano can do that, you can then outsource it to a service like CodeMagic, which gives you access to Mac M2 build resources, where it can kick it off from there, and then it calls back to Xano, and Xano then orchestrates that. It's a great tool used for complex data orchestration between multiple enterprise platforms, right? But I wanted to show you something where I'm using a Lambda function, but let's see, I think it's on app new. Let's see. No, it's not on app new. Where did I put it? App update, app data, app builds. Oh no, it's on team. It's when I create a development team. That's where it is. I have no idea where the development team is though. Development team. Okay, development Apple create. Okay, here's what we're doing. Now, what we need to do, and this is complicated, we need to create a certificate, a signed certificate, to attach that to a development team. Now, you can't normally do this in Xano because you need to run a Node.js library for that. Now, the cool thing about Xano is when their little beautiful Lego blocks can't help you anymore, you can resort back to using custom code. So you're only writing the code that matters. Instead of writing this as code, and this is code, and this is code, and having to get paid to write this, and maintain it, you only write the code that matters, allowing you to move faster, have less maintenance, make better progress, and collaborate where it needs to. And you can then turn those Lambda functions also into functions with their own inputs, so your non-technical team can work with the custom code without even having to interact with the code, which I didn't do, but you can do that. Let's take a look at this Lambda function. What it essentially does is it just generates, using the crypto API, it generates a signed private key, right? Which you would normally run in a terminal of your computer if you were to, publish your application from your terminal. Now we can run this in Xano as well. We can run any TypeScript or any Node.js package, which is a cool thing. So you got access to the whole NPM network inside of Xano. Now people say NoCode can't scale. Xano can scale. You can scale to whatever you want. Now, worst case, are you paying $3,000 a month for Xano Enterprise to self-host on your own infrastructure and you have to pay for their license? Possibly. But the time that you're saving in development, the faster iterations going from version 1 to version 2 and from version 2 to version 3, and the ability to have your team observe what's going on, have them build certain things if you properly train them, and having a system that you can log in at midnight being half asleep, not having a coffee yet, and just somewhat figure out what's going wrong and debug it and fix it in the middle of the night without having to look at the code and just mess up more than you used to because it's late and you're tired, is a great system. I can't think of a better tool than Xano. I'm not getting paid by them to say this. I'm just truly convinced that this is the way to build backends. This is the way to build applications moving forward. It's the future. If you're using Supabase, if you're using anything else than Xano, I don't know what you're doing. You're living in the past. Of course, it does cost more money than using Cloudflare. It does cost more money than using Supabase. Plenty of more money. But cutting out the developers that manage it, having your clients understand what's happening on their backend, getting your client involved in building the backend, and at some point training them to, probably only on the branch, build their own backends and collaborate with you together, which Xano has great collaboration features, is the way to build moving forward. The future is not the client, the person, the visionary having an idea, hiring a developer and looking at gibberish. The future is taking the client's requirement, taking the idea, the vision, working with the client together and building it. The way you bridge through that is by using those visual tools like Xano that let you do everything and import millions and millions of NPM packages. There's nothing you can do. You can even do WebAuthn in it and do passkey issuing and signing and all that with the NPMs, right? You get all the libraries that all the ordinary backends would have, possibly even more than you can do in a Cloudflare worker. But the way is bridging that, getting the client, getting the visionary, getting the creative founder, if you're a startup, involved in the build process and having the domain experts collaborate with you together on building it rather than just executing their idea. With this way of building, you're going to get the project and the product that you want rather than a slightly worse or very worse version of what you anticipated it will be. So I think it's the future of development. Again, I'm maybe opinionated about that, but I couldn't imagine any better tool and I wouldn't use anything else compared to Xano for my backend needs. And I hope that this is helpful for you. And let me know if you have any questions about Xano. Take care.